How we doing today, this week?
Pretty good. It's been a good week. You've just
Fast.
rocking so many awesome shirts, Tyler. Where do you get your swag from?
I got a swag dealer.
Yeah, so I've had a pretty busy week. It's been fairly I don't know, eventful and uneventful week in the crypto space. So I'm sure we'll get into some of that. I think the biggest thing, if we want to jump right in, is the recent Fed announcement about a pending rate hike in 2023. So what does that mean? Does it have anything to do with crypto? Where are we at with all that?
Yeah. So for me, the big thing about, the dollar rules everything. That's the big thing about where markets are right now and kind of how the world reacts. In my opinion, like we can fast forward 10 to 20 years in the future. The fact that the entire world was waiting on the FOMC announcement yesterday before volatility kicked in. It's just kind of comical, just like waiting for this board to announce new. I don't know. It's just like comparing where the direction's headed to where we're going. Taking a cue from Tyler's shirt, decentralized by nature. It was just like, wow, we're going to look back at this in 10 years and be like, we're just so stupid. Like, it was all just so silly to be waiting for this announcement to see what they were going to do, where, and how it's going to affect monetary policy. Whereas, just math and code and algorithms, then crypto is kind of the way of the future. But yeah, so the Fed announced they're going to be expecting to hike rates a couple times in 2023. Also, they raised their inflation estimate for the rest of the year. They bumping it up to almost 3.5%, where they had it at about 2%. So they are recognizing that inflation is possible, but it was typical like Fed speak in the sense that the purpose of the Fed's announcements are to calm the market most of the time, to like not necessarily tell them what's going to happen, but just to not really create any fears while also maintaining the ability to have an effect on the market. And so it was very much just this sort of Fed speak, like, yeah, inflation is higher than we were projecting, but that's actually a good thing. They're still saying inflation is transitory, which is just one of the big things that Tudor Jones mentioned in his interview on CNBC is like how he just doesn't understand how the Fed could think that inflation, when you printed 20 to 30% of all USD in the market, or that's ever existed in the last 18 months, he doesn't see how that can be transitory. He's like, that's a big deal. And so yeah, immediately when the FOMC announced their news at 2 o'clock, we saw the dollar spike. So yeah, we definitely saw some pretty big movement. And again, the dollar controls everything, or it's the king right now. And so markets sold off. The S&P 500 sold off. Bitcoin sold off. Yeah, it was a pretty big announcement, and it was quick, and it was very aggressive. I think it's been something I've been talking about over the last couple of weeks, and we're at these levels now, given how aggressive this move has been. It's interesting to see us hitting these resistance levels so quickly after an announcement like that. I'm actually inclined to think that We might go a little bit higher on the dollar. Certainly, we definitely could push it up a little bit, drag markets down. I think the S&P 500 in particular, it's definitely possible to kind of hit that kind of bluish zone, hit that diagonal resistance, and kind of go from there. I don't anticipate us breaking above, like I talked about in the past, but yeah, this is definitely what I've been waiting for, kind of some large market reaction in the dollar, to see how high this can go. It could definitely go higher, but personally, now that we've had this reaction, this is where things are about to shift into like crazy town, in my opinion. I think if the dollar starts breaking down from here, that's green light for the S&P 500 and the market at large to go risk on, and that's what really elevates us to, 200K Bitcoin, alt season, like super mega alt season, because what they announced was they're raising rates in 2023, and that's supposed to strengthen the dollar a little bit, which initially it did. But if that doesn't actually work, then it's kind of like the Fed is running out of tools to pursue. However, what do you do? And I'm sorry, this is kind of going off on a tangent. And I thought about this yesterday or the day before, but if you're the Fed and you're like buying all of these securities and printing all this money, like just obtaining like inordinate amounts of debt, what is the best thing to do from a nation state perspective in order to pay down that debt? That's just inflate your currency and basically saying, hey, all the money that we owe you in like the nominal terms is worth less in the future. And so I could totally see, for me, if I can send another screenshot of a kind of zoomed out perspective of the dollar. But if you, sorry, 1 second. If you zoom out, I would expect the dollar to kind of fall further along the route. Further lower, just kind of down the channel, if you will. And those are just some key levels that I'm looking at. If you can put it on the screen.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to me, this screams like sell the rumor, buy the news. I mean, like, you look at the chart, like the people that know that this announcement was going to come out have been known. Like, it wasn't like they made the decision last night and they came out with the announcement. The fact that the reaction was so strong, to me, screams like a sucker trap. Like, the people like they've been selling for the last 3 months. Now let's buy it up and force people into another trap so we can then drive the price down lower. And this right here, like, kind of confirms that like it looks like it's a trap. And I agree with you. Like, if you're in that much debt, eventually, like, you gotta, like, how do you settle up? It's like, if you gotta declare bankruptcy, you gotta say, all right, let's figure out what I got. Let me give you what I can. Like, here, print money, buy interest in our good assets. You tell me which stocks in the S&P are the good stocks. I'll let you buy them with the money that we're printing. Just like, let's work this out. Like, and that's what's happening. I mean, like, we're going through bankruptcy.
I mean, we're not as bad as Japan. I'm looking at global debt to GDP ratios, and Japan's like over 200%. 237% as of Q1 2021. But we're like top 15, almost top 10 So it's just kind of interesting to see. We're at 106% or so, approximately. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting to see what's going to happen and how it's all going to play out. But just personally, like being in Europe, like crypto notwithstanding, just being in Europe and like earning money in euros and like having the ability to like stack euros is like very comforting at this moment in time for me.
So you prefer the euro over the dollar now?
In terms of like, yeah, like in terms of like, if I am earning money, I would prefer to earn euros. Give me Bitcoin all day, but like between the two, I would prefer to earn euros.
Name a fiat you would prefer over euros. What's your favorite fiat?
Pound.
Pound. Why?
I don't know enough about FX totally. I'm not an expert there, but I still like I've been doing it for a couple of years now. I think just the headwinds. If the dollar loses, the pound, especially like leaving, like because of Brexit, they have more control and autonomy of their economy. And so I think that's and like if you look at a chart on a long-term perspective, over the last several years, that currency has been like really destroyed. And so yeah, I think it's kind of really well positioned to outperform pretty much everything else. There's probably some other smaller currencies, Hey, El Salvador's currency is Bitcoin, so give me that. But yeah, it's.
I like the Mexican peso because they didn't print a whole lot of money during COVID. And there's a lot of American industry that's moving to Mexico, from car manufacturing to steel plants to a lot of heavy industries going to Mexico. And Mexico seems like a sweet place. The other is the Hong Kong dollar because it makes no sense. Like, people have been trying to short it for its existence, and they just keep getting burned. There's no reason for it to like. But the Hong Kong dollar, because it's like completely irrational and just yet still seems to find its place.
Yeah, I mean, there's geopolitical turmoil is one thing, nation state, colonization, and that whole thing is another thing. I have no idea what to even think about the Hong Kong dollar. Have you really looked into it though?
So one of my friends is the chairman of Bitstamp, and like he's a really like high level thinker guy. He's a young guy. He's like your age, and that's one of the discussions that we had that lasted for like an hour one day. Was him ranting about the Hong Kong dollar, why it didn't make any sense, why it was worth $0, but yet why like it still has value.
That chart looks crazy. But keep in mind, like if you look at the scale, it's got a really tight range, but it's so manipulated. Like it's not. I think China's currency is not an open market currency. It's pegged. I don't even know how you like. Yeah,
I don't
even know.
Is that dollars to Hong Kong dollars? So what if we were to look at, maybe the chart would make more sense visually if we looked at Hong Kong dollars to dollars. If I don't know if that's possible, but
yeah, I mean it's just inverse. I mean, I don't think it makes any more sense.
Yeah. Well, you've got a highly manipulated currency and then a highly manipulated currency with the dollar and with Chinese currency. So as far as the situation in Hong Kong, I don't think the Hong Kong dollar doesn't really have any direct relationship with the pound, does it?
I mean, no, not particularly. I guess one thing would be super interesting would be looking at the Russian ruble, just given everything they're doing. They've announced that they're not going to be holding dollars as part of their national reserve anymore, which is pretty interesting. And they, just looking at the chart, have been beat to shreds. This is on a 3-month time frame now, so it's a little bit longer. But I would say, like the more it's beat up, the more upside potential it has. So that's the Russian ruble right there. So maybe, I guess if I could rephrase that, maybe the pound and the ruble would be pretty interesting fiat currencies to be in. I don't know about China. I mean, basically the whole thesis behind the Russian ruble would probably apply to China's currency as well. So there's that. But I guess Russia has more oil. I don't know. If I was being risky conservative, I would just stick with it.
Do you have pet birds?
I have a tree outside my house that a lot of birds congregate on. I can close the door if it's becoming troublesome.
I don't know. It's up to our live audience to decide.
I will close.
Yeah. So we're talking about the dollar. We're talking about the United States Federal Reserve decision-making process, and a kind of a somewhat surprising, unexpected, or really probably expected, but out of the blue. And timing is interesting, but we're talking about the implications of a rate increase, the effect on the dollar, and potentially just what that means for fiat and for crypto moving forward. So it's kind of like feels like the levee could break at any moment. It's not imminent necessarily, but you're seeing signs of that happening. If the unraveling of the dollar begins, or just global fiat currency led by the dollar begins to happen, I personally kind of look at that as a tipping point for us to move full on into that new world order of wealth redistribution, I guess. Just the reprioritization of the different aspects of money and what we need as a society. We gave up a lot of privacy by subscribing to the theory that we all need little computers in our pockets. They unlock themselves and give us access to all of our stuff with our face. And we, decide, okay, we prioritize that convenience over a certain element of privacy. And that moves us forward in some direction. And same thing with money. So if we begin to blow off and just burn off all of the promises and all of it, just into this full-fledged money printing machine, and it starts to kind of unravel in that way, all the money in the world that was on that old system is going to flow onto the new system, right? I mean, that's kind of the function of it. And so that tipping point, I think, becomes likely, and that's going to accelerate whenever this becomes apparent. That's how I feel. And when we talk about the word supercycle, isn't that really the definition of that? So I don't know. I think that whether we're up on it right now, and I'm talking about just that spilling over from fiat systems and the value that's held there into Bitcoin. I've talked about it in the terms of like the denominator. Bitcoin as a price point, it goes up in dollars. That's how we're kind of valuing what a Bitcoin is worth. And so the numerator goes up. Bitcoin goes up in price. But what happens when the denominator loses value? Like, when dollars don't mean the same. So you've got kind of a double levered thing happening there. Your reference point is moving. And so I think watching both of those are important. And I think that when the dollar begins to truly lose value and gets printed out the wazoo, you're going to have the mudslide happen, but you're not going to be able to tell what's happening because it's like the mountains moving underneath you too. So that's kind of like the whole supercycle theory for me. I think it really will take some big changes with what's going on with the dollar. I think that COVID-19, that event in history was a spark. And it's not linear, right? It's not linear. So we don't know exactly how it's going to play out or how quickly it's going to come. But it does feel like the levees broke or breaking. And when it gives way completely, I mean, that's going to not necessarily lead to the super cycle, but that's going to fuel the super cycle.
I mean, the super cycle is exciting talk, but like what I hope happens is kind of like more towards like the first part of what you were saying about all these currencies, and like they all have different, like we're kind of getting to redecide and redistribute like what is money. And what will be really interesting is if these countries or organizations start really looking at these different currencies at a really high, like a really like minute level to try to understand like what about this currency like resonates with us, right? Like is it Zcash as a country, like like Switzerland say, like did they want Zcash to be what their currency is built on top of because that's what they value? Or is it Dogecoin because there's a fixed block reward forever, and so you only have the same amount of money every month to fix your problems with, right? It's like you like just the different philosophies behind these currencies and their reward mechanisms and their economics and their security and their privacy and their block times and their block sizes and the different types of encryption used to secure the blockchain. And like it would be really awesome, which the super cycle would be great because that's like all the money flows into one pot and then into another and then into another and then back into this. But like it would just be awesome if the world could like subscribe to the money that resonates with them, and there'd just be all these interoperability on ramps. I mean, so it's like it's kind of like it is now with currencies, except for people would just be more cognizant of it because they would be using they could switch currency. Like instead of, well, I'm in the US, so I'm going to use the US dollar, they could say, well, I resonate more with Zcash than Dogecoin, so I'm going to switch to that. There's interoperability on-ramp, off-ramps in my country for me to use that. Why not?
Yeah. I have a couple comments on that. Before I address that, backing up to address what Rishi said with the decline of the US dollar, like with the mass exodus from fiat to crypto, I do think fiat currencies are not going anywhere. They are still going to be around for the next decade or two at least, because nations aren't just going to give up their power. And I think there are just going to be really interesting social dynamics and political dynamics that come into play with a declining dollar in terms of, other currencies are going to gain besides Bitcoin on the US dollar. And that's going to have like profound political, geopolitical, and, who knows whatever else effects. But in terms of like the mass exodus from fiat to crypto, I think the biggest thing right now that we're experiencing is like the limiting factors of crypto. There was a really good Uncommon Core episode podcast with, I forget his name, the other multi-coin capital founder, Michael, forget his last name, not Tishar. Oh yeah, Kyle. Anyway, it was a really incredible episode that he did basically a deep dive on Solana, and he talked about the trade-offs between like interoperability and decentralization and throughput. And like Solana has definitely a higher level of throughput, but it has, at least up until this point, sacrificed decentralization. And he's just kind of talked through the reasoning behind that, and like just made the comment that really like spoke to me. He was like, in the beginning, Bitcoin was super centralized. In the beginning, Ethereum was super centralized. And inevitably, whatever project you start, it's going to be super centralized. And so it's just kind of a matter of time before a project, if it succeeds, to be like decentralized. And so given that, they really boosted throughput. And basically he was saying like, that's the limiting factor for blockchains right now is having the ability to transact, or transact quickly and handle millions of people transacting multiple times a day on like having 50 million daily active users that use it every day, multiple times a day. But when that does happen, it's likely going to be a very big, like a company will announce they are going with Solana for this particular purpose. And, other companies are just going to wait and see how that works. But if it works, like Solana is going to be the one, because it's demonstrated the ability to handle 50 million daily active users. Or, if it's Ethereum, that where like everything, well, I guess with ETH 2.0 and sharding and everything, that will increase the transaction per second to, I forget exactly what, but, and that's going to be a huge improvement in the underlying protocol. But I don't think it's going to be able to handle the same number of payments that Visa or MasterCard can handle. Like, we're not there yet. And so it's going to take some time. And I don't think Solana is going to be like the end all be all necessarily. It certainly has the ability to. But yeah, it was a really amazing podcast of like really understanding Solana and kind of the Solana ecosystem a little bit more from a hugely successful venture capital fund. And then lastly, coming back to like the dollar and everything, and referencing what I said earlier about the Paul Tudor Jones interview. And this is just kind of broadly speaking and in favor of the mass exodus from fiat to crypto. Paul Tudor Jones recommended pre-FOMC announcement, investors have a 5% allocation to cash, 5% allocation to stocks, 5% allocation to bonds, and 5% to Bitcoin. And like the fact that Paul Tudor Jones, one of the largest asset managers in the world, recommends having a 5% allocation to Bitcoin, to like that will make waves across Wall Street, across every like all financial institutions. That's such a I mean, he's not saying go all in, but he's recommending like everybody have exposure to Bitcoin at this point. And again, it's just one of those things like, over the years, it's like you just kind of dream about somebody like that saying, "Hey, you don't have to go all in, but like you need to have some exposure to this because inflation is a real thing. This is the best inflation hedge you got in the market right now."
5% is significantly more than the 1% that, um, you know, people who, they know that they're kind of guiding the general, people who watch CNBC and the shows that they go on type of thing. So to see 5%, that's pretty significant compared to 1%, which has really kind of been the safe, acceptable recommendation to kind of still keep your old legacy reputation intact. So this is pretty significant. But then again, it's kind of only halfway to 10%. But it is important now. Who's buying Bitcoin right now? I mean, when you got Paul Tudor Jones, uh, Paul Tudor Jones likes Bitcoin and calls it this on CNBC, or CNBC is covering this. Who's paying attention to what he says? Institutions, at-home investors, everybody who watches CNBC as looking at him as another talking head of somebody who's rich and manages money and should know what he's talking about.
I think for someone like Paul Tudor Jones, who's an asset manager, I think this signaling is messaging to like not hedge funds. They're already doing what they want to do. They're already in. Not maybe asset managers, but that also like specifically what I'm thinking is like pension funds. That's I think the market that hasn't tapped into Bitcoin other than their exposure through equities and MicroStrategy, if you will. But yeah, like I think pension funds having some allocation to Bitcoin is kind of who he's referencing to. Who's like referring like you guys need to have some allocation to Bitcoin at this point because it's it's here to stay. It's a store of wealth.
So Bitcoin is getting propped back up in the public opinion in the, what is this, FUD still, or is this anti-FUD?
Yeah, that's hype. That's hype right there.
Hype. Okay. So we're getting some Bitcoin hype again. Other, alt markets have slightly, they held up fairly well in the big scheme of things over the last little while. They look cautious. Looks like all eyes are back on Bitcoin right now, just in terms of public opinion, what's being talked about, hype, if you will. So what do we anticipate now? I mean, where are we? Maybe we can get that chart back up, the golden chart that we kind of look at to try to figure out, make sense of things. Where do we think that we are? Do we still feel like, I think the general consensus among our partner group last week was that we felt like we were in a bear trap.
I stand by my word. I mean, this is like, I think shit's about to get crazy. I think it's true for equities. I think it's true for commodities. Gold, I think, is even going to move. Gold and silver. Yeah, like inflation's a thing. It's not going anywhere. We printed a bunch of money, and yeah, I think crypto is gonna benefit from all of this as well. And it's probably not. I don't know. Personally, I'm very bullish on the next 10 years in crypto. There's gonna be swings for sure, but yeah, for the next 10 years, I am super bullish on crypto, and I don't think it's all just going to happen necessarily by the end of this year or early 2022. There might be some smaller cycles, but it's finally, like, crypto has finally hit the world stage. You know, it's not just nerdy kids who have peculiar interests. It's a real thing on Wall Street, on Main Street, um, all other countries. You know, it's a national currency in South America. I think it's also like one of majorly, like, very accepted in Nigeria as well. Um, but yeah, anyway.
So I'm sticking to, I think we're going backwards. I think that we're in the bull trap now, but it's really a bear trap, and that we're gonna, keep rising throughout the rest of this year. When we get to the new paradigm around like 200,000, then we're gonna start pulling back, and then we're gonna see delusion. And then once we get around halfway down to the level of the bull trap, bear trap, whatever, we're going to see greed, where we're going to see people who have put profits start shoving back in. And then I think that the enthusiasm is going to catch right where despair would be on the other side. And then we kind of like start the cycle again, from like media attention back to enthusiasm, like going on to like a new run up to a million. So it's like, I think once we hit enthusiasm, which would be like despair, I think we like reverse it and run it back turbo.
Run it back turbo. That's the name of this episode. All right. Yeah. I mean, I think, I think it's probably bear trap. I think we're in that spot. I mean, the longer we've kind of hovered around here and rebuilt some hype, and the FUD that came out was intense. It was industry wide. It was geared at big business and institutional FUD. Energy efficiency and, regulation and, all the FUD, the type of FUD that we had been getting over the last month, what really sent markets down, and that was geared towards big money. The type of FUD that's geared towards investors is the IRS is, auditing everything or coming after all crypto. Like there's certain things that FUD targets retail. And the middle of this chart, the vertical line between institutional investors and public, I think that's where we are. The FUD, the weak hands fold push was for that institutional investor part. Media attention means that's all everybody's talking about. And we got a little taste of that, but we didn't get a chance for enthusiasm and greed. It takes people a long time to make decisions. We got to keep in mind we're very, very early. We were earlier than institutional investors. So we're watching and we're understanding that all the institutions are already in now. They're already in. I mean, the biggest institutions, let's call those like pension funds, trusts, like the legacy of stuff, right? They hold all like the vast majority of, the systematic wealth, large portfolios and, blue chip stocks and bonds and those sorts of things. Those sorts of things take a little bit more time to unwind. Generally, a lot of those things go down with the bigger ship. If you were to have a currency crisis or an economic crisis. But anyway, I do think that for the most part, institutions are in, hedge funds are definitely in. You got Mark Cuban getting rugged on Titan. Either that or he's rugging people. We'll figure that out. But This is early days, and in terms of the public, you have both hype and FUD, and at some point there's regulatory efforts that come in to allow the encouragement of hype and people flowing in, but then that's in the name of protecting consumers. We're probably going to see some of that regulation start trickling in for institutional investors, for the institutions, for the large company holdings, whether that's SEC, regulations mandating that you disclose the type of crypto holdings, that you can't just say Bitcoin and others. Whether that's good for the investor class to be aware of, certain SEC or accounting regulations in terms of disclosure to protect investors. The public phase of that is to protect people from not losing their mortgages and that sort of thing. So we're very, very far away from that. But I think that we're getting ready to sell everything to the public. We just listed Doge. We as an ecosystem just listed Doge on Coinbase, which just went public. This is all getting ready to feed crypto as a retail product to the people. So, yeah, I think we're in the bear trap. I mean, we're probably bouncing around off the bottom. We still might be going down a little bit. We might be on our way back up. I don't know exactly where we are, but it should just be steady accumulation from here until things get a little crazy, and there's no telling when that's going to be.
Well, I watched a little bit of the last up only with Raoul Paul, and he was just talking about how Coinbase kind of robbed us of the blow off the top that we really deserved, because a lot of money that should have flowed into Bitcoin or should have flew into Ethereum or whatever just bought Coinbase. And so in a way, Coinbase kind of like robbed the ecosystem with their listing instead of brought more money into the ecosystem.
I believe that. That's just another reason why I hate that company.
We are not sponsored by Coinbase.
No, we are.
Go to FTX or Blockfolio, or any crypto exchange besides Coinbase.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about where some of our holdings are. I think that none of us are really itching to make any moves right now. It's generally a sign of stability and nothing necessarily immediately anticipated in the near future as far as changes or, things to be prepared for or reposition. But I would like to kind of take a look at some of our larger positions, maybe in a couple different angles, a couple different ways. We've been talking about Bitcoin, but let's talk about Ethereum, and let's talk about maybe some Chainlink, some Zcash. Where are we in terms of dollar value, Bitcoin value, or any other, in terms of whatever value we care about?
For me, I like looking at this link F chart. It's a little chaotic. Explain a couple things about it, but yeah, I like looking at this link F chart that I got going on. It's basically two descending channels. If you can kind of see it. Whenever it gets pulled up. Yeah, so it's two descending channels. The first one we broke out of back in the beginning of 2021. and then kind of had been going down, down, down. Finally retested it in the middle of June, or right before June, and retesting it and confirming the initial descending channel as, or the initial resistance from August of 2020. And basically, link up. All that means is if something's going up, it's going up faster than the other. So if link is going up and F is going up, then the link F chart just shows which one is going to go up faster. And I think and I'm actually fairly confident about this. I'm pretty sure that the link F chart has bottomed. Really, that just perfect retest of the top resistance level for the second time, and without being able to break through it, is pretty strong confirmation in my eyes. So I'm pretty excited about the rest of this chart and kind of to see how it plays out. Now, there's definitely larger resistance up top in that, the resistance line that starts in the middle of January of this year. So whenever we get to that level, maybe 0.0135-ish, I think I fully anticipate a reaction around there. So it's not going to just kind of break through and fly. But yeah, this is a really good looking chart that I'm pretty excited about going forward.
So you would look at this and you would say, okay, link F, what that means is that, link is not going up as much as F. So if you had held link as opposed to F, you would be down, which is what this chart is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you would have been better off holding F than you would have link.
Right. So if you take that and you say, okay, well, maybe I would be interested in investing in Link here because ETH has had a run, maybe. Link is a smaller market cap. Link may, at a later point in time, do better in terms of performance than ETH, to where you would rather hold Link than ETH. And if general what goes up must come down, we kind of have a little bit of volatility. You could say that this might reverse, at which point you want to move out of ETH and into Link. What other considerations are there? Let's look at what is Link and what is ETH, and how are Link and how are ETH actually related in real life, not just on a chart. What is Link to
ETH? That's a really interesting question. Tyler, do you want to take a step?
So what Link is Link is an oracle that basically accesses APIs and pulls that are being subscribed to the Chainlink system supplying data. And they pull that data from the APIs that are supplying data, and they place that data into smart contracts. So that way smart contracts can be settled. So for instance, for Uniswap or a lot of these DeFi projects, they need an accurate exchange price to settle. They need to know what it's trading at, what's the market price. And so a lot of times that market price is determined from a price that's being supplied, maybe from CoinGecko, maybe from one of these exchanges, maybe from CoinMarketCap, but some type of data provider, right? So if you're a weather service, you could provide your weather data through an API to a Chainlink oracle, and then Chainlink would be able to source that weather data to be able to place that data into smart contracts. And so when you add Chainlink into your smart contracts, it's just a way for you to fill in all the fields. So, and Chainlink doesn't just do that for Ethereum. Chainlink is one of the services that does that for all of the blockchains that, integrate with it. there are other people that are coming along to compete with Chainlink because they've been so pigeonholed in the finances. But I mean, Chainlink's like Google for, all of blockchain. It's like, we need this data. Boom. Here you go.
It's literally like the name implies. It's like a link between chains, and
The real world.
Yeah, between and the real world, But then you have F or Ethereum, which is like the platform that hosts everything except for the interconnectedness of all these other chains. And so, DeFi and insurance, everything that you can think of at this point happens on Ethereum. And part of that's being brought to Bitcoin, but yeah, as far as F is concerned, it's definitely the largest crypto settlement layer on a daily basis in the world right now.
So if you have one thing that's pretty interesting about this crypto space is, these projects are all you need to have a coin or a token, or it's a project, and these projects are companies. And so that's kind of the structure of crypto space compared to companies that we've seen over a longer ecosystem and lifetime, whether you're talking about the U.S. stock market or just kind of how we've seen companies in the legacy world come to be through startups, fundraising, going kind of private, public, venture capital, and then becoming blue chips, and then getting added to pensions, and just kind of that life cycle. It's really interesting to kind of think about the fact that, at least from my perspective, we haven't really seen a two-way street when it comes to kind of the ebbs and the flows. And what I mean by that is it's natural in crypto space, and with the way that crypto projects are structured, for you to have tree like branching off. You have a team that starts working on something, and then at some point you realize, this could go in two different directions. One group goes one way, the other group goes the other way. You fork a project, you fork a coin, you fork your chain, and then at that point you've really got two different projects, two different companies, two different teams, two different coins, however you want to look at it. But we really haven't seen the other way happen. Maybe you guys can point to a situation where this has happened, but what about the consolidation side of things? I mean, what about when teams join forces? What about when multiple teams are working on a similar type project, and it's worth combining forces to really move it forward in the big space? Has that happened? If it has, how prominent is it? Can you give some examples of it? And then, would that potentially be something in the cards for Link to become a dedicated, kind of like a PayPal to an eBay sort of a situation, where it could always be broken apart later. It could remain independent, but to really be attached to an ecosystem to fully, give it some juice. It'd be awesome to see a superpower like that form. But yeah, what have we seen like that? What consolidation of teams and projects have we seen in the past?
Yeah, I can give you a really good example. But the best example I can give is Ren. So Ren is a project that has been well known but rarely talked about for a long time. I've been following Ren since early 2018, and they got added to Coinbase. Like, nobody talked about it when they got added to Coinbase. It wasn't a hyped project when it got added to Coinbase. It really wasn't doing anything when it got added to Coinbase, but it was one of the early projects added to Coinbase, right? And then all of a sudden, Alameda comes along and invests tens of millions. They pretty much buy the Ren team. Like, it was, I don't know how much money it was. It might have been $30 million they came along with and bought the Ren team. Since Alameda and Ren have partnered, the code that has been developed, which there have been no press, or there might have been a little press, but FTX, SAM, Solana, Alameda, they don't talk REN. They don't promote it. They don't try to pitch it. They don't try to build awareness around it, but they are developing and they're building out to where you can deploy any blockchain on any other blockchain within like 2 hours, like through the REN code. So, and that's all been beefed up through Alameda developers and Solana developers and FTX developers. And it's like REN is trying to turn into this blockchain of blockchains, this solution that allows for interoperability on ramps and off ramps to everything. You know, you hear all these people hyping Thorchain, but it's like all you got to do is add automated market makers to a REN VM, and it's like, boom, why is Thorchain even relevant? Like, it's a feature, it's not a project. And so it's like REN is like one of those projects that is like it's ran by OGs that are involved throughout the space. Greycore is going to be massive, and they're building the interoperability between all of these blockchain projects. That, you know, in my opinion, the only thing for me is like, are they their own feature, right? Like, are they eventually going to be replaced once these blockchains learn how to directly interoperate with each other instead of using some middleware? But REN is like the best example I can think of besides Chainlink, where it seems like, and maybe Sushi, but like where it seems like the community is like all these blockchains are like partnering and bolstering the development of this one ecosystem.
What about Link? Is that something that, I mean, are they better staying independent and servicing the entire industry at this point and continuing to build outward? Or, you know, is there an opportunity for them to kind of hit that jet stream by attaching to the particular, you know, for example, the F2.0 development process, or jump on a newcomer, what do you guys think there? I mean, what's the cards?
I think it's the other way around. It's like if you are going to like facilitate any sort of off-chain or like other chain information, you have to partner with an Oracle. And the biggest, baddest Oracle in town is Link. They have the most partnerships amongst any crypto Oracle out there, and this is definitely like a sector where it is, in my opinion, like winner take all. It's, you are going to, you need an Oracle that can connect to everything, and the way it's set up, you know, with keepers performing jobs and getting a reputation, so you can see, you know, if they are actually being worthy and completing their jobs like they say they do. I think the entire model is really set up to succeed in the long run. And so in terms of like, if you're a new project and you're in DeFi, I think you definitely need to partner with Link.
And, you know, I don't necessarily believe, I don't necessarily believe that Sergey is Satoshi, but he definitely was around and involved in the early process. I just posted a link in the chat where like he actually registered smartcontracts.com on smartcontract.com. He registered it October 25th of 2008. And then the Bitcoin white paper was published the next day. And that was the first mention of like smart contracts. And then he bought smartcontracts.com in 1998. And then he bought smartcontracts.com in 2008. The day before the Bitcoin white paper was published. And so Sergey Nazarov is one of those protected people. Like, Chainlink was a project for him to like become a billionaire and get successful without like and help protect the secrets of Satoshi. Like honestly, if there's probably any person that could probably access the wallet that's alive and not in jail, it would probably be this man, right? Like, so I think that Chainlink is like his like vessel. It's his Apple, it's his Google, it's his Amazon. Like, and you know, like I said, I don't believe that he actually is Satoshi, but I definitely believe he played a part. And I think that like Chainlink is one of those projects that you kiss the ring, right? Like, and they just launched on Ethereum because they didn't need their own blockchain. Like they were needed for all these other blockchains to work, and Ethereum was the first blockchain that had smart contracts to be released. You're on mute, Ro.
Appreciate it.
Did we lose Ro?
Can
No, he's back.
you hear me?
Yeah, we got
Yeah.
you.
The narrative is really nice in the sense that, let's say he developed Bitcoin and he like, is it fucking up?
Oh, we can hear you.
And he did develop Bitcoin. I think the next thing, if I was Satoshi, would be, hey, I want to make sure everything's interconnected so that the entire crypto sphere really works. Because, you know, Bitcoin's awesome, but it doesn't serve everything. And as soon as he recognized that, then yeah, having something like Chainlink that quite literally connects everything to everything else is vital to an ecosystem. So yeah, I could definitely, I like the narrative behind that. Not saying I'm sticking to my guns, but yeah, it makes sense to me.
All right. Well, let's talk about Michael Saylor real quick before we wrap up. You know, is he upset at Elon? Are they friends? Are they trying to work things out? No, seriously though. I think Michael Saylor's getting ready to buy more Bitcoin. So he says, "What's up? What's up with Michael Saylor?"
So I like the way that Raul put it on the Up Only episode, was that basically like the dude's a billionaire with or without MicroStrategies. Like if MicroStrategies goes bust, he's still a billionaire. But like he's basically like doing what any billionaire like wishes to do. Like what can you do if you've got all the money in the world? Like build a reputation. And that's what he's doing. Is he's either going to go down as some like maniac psycho idiot, or he's going to go down as like this badass OG like guy with conviction. Like he did it. Like he embodied Bitcoin. And like the belief is he's going to succeed, you know, like honestly, this guy's probably going to be the one that builds the Citadel. Like the guy is you gotta love the guy. Like he's crazy. But like he's showing everybody the playbook to get rich. Like you find something good and you do it with conviction. And he did the same thing with like Apple stock back like years ago. He did the same thing. I think he did it with Amazon. I think he did it with like Tesla or Uber. Like the guy, like he's a legend. You know, he's a legend. I mean, what else can you say?
So he's gonna raise a bunch of money. He's gonna take Wall Street's money and go buy more Bitcoin. So how much of MicroStrategy's holdings are in crypto?
Everything.
Okay, so then how big is MicroStrategies in terms of total?
I mean, they have 92,000.
Almost 100,000 Bitcoin.
Okay. So
and that's not with the $1 billion that they just got, or that they are going to raise.
So they're gonna be buying Monday.
So who are they buying from? Who's selling it to them? Who's selling Bitcoin right now to Michael Saylor?
Well, the Chinese probably.
Okay.
Chinese miners relocating.
It's a squeeze.
What if, see, we talked about this years ago, Rishi, about like there was going to be a time where institution money was going to accumulate, government money was going to accumulate, and then they were going to squeeze the miners. They were going to make it where the price was held down for so long to where miners were not going to, and it's like, what if this was supposed to be the squeeze? And Michael Saylor says, I'll buy them all. I'll buy them all.
Yeah. I mean, what happens when? So you've got a certain amount of Bitcoin. It's going to be bought up by the largest wealth holders because the natural scarcity of things and the way that ecosystem is designed. And then you've got it flowing in real economies and real development and real products and real services. And that's kind of the ETH gateway and beyond. What are the implications of the people or the organizations or the institutions that hold Bitcoin 5-10 years from now in a fully evolved crypto system?
They're in jail.
Yeah, fast forward all the way. Yeah. Yeah, we build forts to house our gold. And then, in our history, we took our gold from our people, from our citizens, and then made it our national vault, essentially. Pumped the price up. History repeats itself in some way sometimes. But yeah, the way it's looking right now, though, the immediate sense is that you've got Wall Street looking to fortify their balance sheets with this. And they'll pay very, very high prices relative to what we've seen in order to get what they think they need.
Well, speaking of paying what you need, like get what you need, billionaires are buying CryptoPunks en masse. And I think it would be cool if Pangea X bought a few. We can still grab some. I mean, like, maybe we set like 100 ETH limit to buy, like on how many, but like, it would be cool if we grabbed up some because, it's more limited than Wi-Fi. It's more limited than Bitcoin, and it seems to be more sought after. Like the people with money in the world are buying CryptoPunks, like still. They're being auctioned off on Sotheby's. It's like maybe we buy a COVID punk, maybe we buy one with a mask, maybe we buy, like, we can't afford an alien, but it's like maybe as Pangea X we need to diversify into some CryptoPunks.
Yeah, it's like, are we at the point where we're investing in artwork now?
I mean, just CryptoPunks. Like, I'm not trying to go crazy like I do.
Yeah, from a conservative, long-term perspective, we are. We are. It's a relatively safe NFT investment, right? I mean, like if you're going to buy one NFT and like with the highest floor, it'd be a CryptoPunk. So, I mean, it's valid. It's a valid proposal. All right, let's wrap this thing up. You guys got final thoughts? Nah.
I think the bottom's in. The bottom's in for sure. I think on a, I don't know on a Bitcoin basis for sure for alts. I think Bitcoin can pump, and push the Bitcoin pairs down for most alts, possibly. But I think on a dollar basis, everything is bottomed for sure. I'm pretty confident in that.
Cool. Tyler, what you think?
I don't know, man. I still think DeFi is. I think big players are averaging out of their stacks and onto on the smaller players.
Cool. Well, I think we're jumping around a little bit. We're probably going to be range bound for a little while. I think we've got hype trying to combat FUD, but really it's just an opportunity for rebalancing, reaccumulation, settling of the dust, positioning, and getting ready for a little bit of a stronger push next time around. So I think we'll be in this area for a little while though.
Zcash is inevitable. But yeah, that was the other one.
Got him.
Boom, cut it. All right. All right, guys. Good call. Enjoyed it. We'll chat next week.
Yeah.
See ya.